Hi everyone. Today we'll discuss about inheritance. So inheritance is a really important concept in OOPS. Inheritance promotes code reusability, which is an important aspect or feature of programming, right? That's why we use functions, right? So how inheritance promotes code reusability, etc. We'll see all these things bit later. So let's move forward. What is inheritance? Inheritance is like a property by which one class can use the member functions or the data members of other class. Let's see this like this is one class and there is some other class like class B or something like that. So inheritance, by inheritance, what we can do, class 2 can take all the properties or the approved properties like data members or member functions from the class 1, provided class 2 have access to these data members, right? So this is basically inheritance. This is all basically inheritance. Like one class is taking properties of other class. This is nothing but inheritance, right? So let's move forward. So the class in this case, class 2 is taking properties of class 1. So class 1, right? Class 1 is the base class and class 2 is the child class, right? So, and to make it clear, let's write it here. Class, just a minute. Class 2 is taking properties of class 1, right? So that's why class 1 is the base class and class 2 is the child class. And how base class, we can also call it like parent class. This is the parent class or base class or child class. So if we look at biology, right, we are inheriting more properties from our parents, right? So you can take analogy from that. And yeah, child class is also called subclass, or we can also call it as subclass, and the parent class is also called the superclass of the child class. So these kind of things, these are just terminologies. Don't take it that much serious. Just child class and subclass, child class and parent class is fine. So when to use inheritance? The answer is pretty much simple, right? If we want to take this kind of scenario where there is some class which wants to conceptually also and functionally also wants same properties, then we can make that class as the child class. For example, let's say we have a class, uh, we have a class vehicle, right? So since we have the class as vehicle, right? So there should be, if there is another that vehicle class, for example, that vehicle class have some data member or member function, like you can say run, or the property of a vehicle is it saves time, and we have another class like we have another class is four-wheeler, right? So that four-wheeler has the same properties like one, saves time, and conceptually also four-wheeler is kind of a subset of vehicle, right? We have two-wheelers also, three-wheelers also. In this kind of scenario, we can use, it's a perfect scenario for inheritance, right? This is the perfect scenario for inheritance. So anyway, so before moving forward, let's see a practical example of that. Let's say we have basic inheritance.cpp. This is our namespace standard as usual, and let's take a class as vehicle, right? Let's say a class is vehicle, and we have a function like saves time, right? So this vehicle saves time, and we have another class as four-wheeler. Let's put it like camel case. This class is four-wheeler, and it actually inherits the class vehicle, right? uh, we have to be, v is to be capital here. So the syntax for inheritance is, this is the class name that you want to create, the child class, and we have to put a colon here, and this is the access specifier. Just forget it for now, we'll explain it later on. For now, for practice, just put public here, and this is the parent class, right? And something here or nothing here, num wheels. The number of wheels is 4, right? So let's create the object of this four-wheeler. So four-wheeler is basically, you can say a simplest example is car, and car dot saves time. Let's see if car has access to the save time member function of the class vehicle, and car dot num wheels, right? And this is just a lame example, it's not a proper example, but conceptually is perfect. So the compilation is done, and let's see if it's, yeah, it ran successfully. The vehicle saves time, and the number of wheels is 4, right? So that is one of the examples. Let's move forward, since the concept is pretty much, yeah. So this is the class name, this is the colon, this is the access specifier, and this is the base name, right? So let's see here also. This is the class keyword, and here will be class name. For example, from the above example, let's see, it is four-wheeler, right? This is the colon, that is this is the access mode specifier like public, and here will be public. So the thing here is, this is the class keyword, right? This is the class name, this is the colon, This is the access specifier as public. This is the parent class name, right? So the thing is, let's define it. This is the keyword. This is the class name. This is the colon as the standard syntax. We all know it's colon, right? This is the access specifier. We'll actually see how there is actually a concept of using access specifiers with inheritance, and we'll see all that in a separate video, so no need to worry about that. For practice, for now, you just put public here, right? And this is the parent class name, and that's it. This is basically the syntax for implementing inheritance, right? So let's move forward. We have already discussed here this. There are 5 types of inheritance in C++. So let's move to the types of inheritance. If you want, you can just pause the video and try to do some practice here, right? But you can do that. The first example is the single inheritance. Since we have 5 types of inheritance, the single inheritance is the kind of inheritance that we have already talked about. That example, this one example, one class is inheriting one class, a single class is inheriting a single class. So one class is inheriting a single class. So this type of example is uh, basically a single inheritance. This is the simplest form of an inheritance, right? So let's see. This is the single inheritance. Right. Let's see. Okay. So this is a single inheritance, and anyway, that example, right? This example that we have already talked about. This kind of example is the single inheritance. So let's repeat it again. Let me repeat it again. Uh, so we have a class 1. We have a class 1. We have a class 2. And here a class is inheriting only one class. So this is the single inheritance. So single inheritance we have already talked about. I don't think we should discuss another example again. I leave it up to you. I guess since you are a beginner, you should create as many number of examples as you want. There are endless possibilities, right? So like electronics, and there is subset of electronics. There is science. There are subset of science subjects, like physics is a branch of science, chemistry is a branch of science. There are subsets of physics also, thermodynamics, mechanics, and all that. So just try to make as much examples as possible. So let's move forward. From single inheritance, let multi-level inheritance. It's basically an extension to the single inheritance, right? I don't know how to copy that, but let me try it. Let me try it. Let's copy it, and here let me paste it. Right. So here is the multi-level inheritance. here is the multi-level inheritance, right? So the thing is, with this multi-level inheritance, we have just one thing. One simple thing is we have another level and we have more than one level. And if you observe closely, there is, in appropriate conditions, class 3 will have access to the members of the class, all members of class 1, provided appropriate uh, access specifiers are provided particular access is granted. If that's the case, there is nothing, right? And this is the thing, I guess. This means, if I talk about only this example, since during four-wheelers there can be a class, right? Four-wheeler with gear, there are gearless cars, right? So if a class is 4 gear with gear, then that class will inherit four-wheeler class, because that class is a vehicle, right? And that class is also a four-wheeler. So technically, conceptually also, class is a subset of this and subset of this also. Class should have access to all the members and data members here in the four-wheeler class and the vehicle class. So that's it. With or out, without or with or without gear. And if that's the thing, this is a gearless vehicle. This is a gearless vehicle or something like that. This vehicle is without gear. This vehicle is gearless, right? So let's run it, and there is something wrong here. Okay, yeah, so the name is wrong, right? Let's see. Okay, we haven't implemented four-wheeler is car. Let's say four-wheeler with gear car. The vehicle is gearless or gear with gear. The program ran without any compilation error. So yeah, the object of this class is able to access the object of four-wheeler and the vehicle. So let's see if we are able to access the object, the function, the member function of this class or not. Yeah, the vehicle is gearless. So that's the thing. I guess the concept is clear. It's able to access all the three classes, provided there are actual accurate or required access specifiers. If these are so, then there is no issues, right? So we have seen this live. So anyway, let's move forward for the multiple inheritance. So multiple inheritance is a topic which is actually which is allowed in C++ but is not allowed in Java, right? And I will recommend you not to use multiple inheritance because it gives you it may give you a lot of errors. Also, this concept will create a lot of problems for you, maybe from even the conceptual point of view, right? So it is advisable not to avoid, because to solve the problem of multiple inheritance, we have to add, there are different concepts in C++. So we'll see all of them later, and all those concepts are basically the result of this whole topic, and I actually hate that. Anyway, multiple inheritance. So just for the sake of this uh, course, or completion of this course, just for the sake of this completion of this course, I am explaining multiple inheritance. But just like goto statement should not be allowed, multiple statements also should not be used, right? Goto statements are allowed, multiple inheritance is also allowed, but not recommended. Both of these things are not recommended, right? And modern programming languages are completely removing this concept of multiple inheritance. So multiple inheritances, like we have class 1 and we have class 2. There are two classes, right? We have two classes, and we have a third class, like we have a third class. So that third class is inheriting the properties of both class 1 and class 2. So why it is a problem? Let's see. Right, so let's see with the help of an example. So let's see. Let's see. Multiple inheritance. Actually, anyway, we have a class, like, let's create an analogy like mother, right? The class is mother, and the access modifier is public. So there are some qualities in mother, right? Void calmness, calm quality, right? And the father is like uh, optimistic. So you can say that there is an optimistic quality, right? And there is a class which is daughter, which is inheriting from both mother and father. There is nothing here. The daughter will get both the qualities of calmness and optimism from mother and father. So let's see. The daughter name can be, what do you say? Albert cannot be a daughter name. Let's take example of Elizabeth. So Elizabeth should have the quality of calmness, handle the situation with calmness, and optimistic, right? So let's see if Elizabeth can access calmness and optimism both or not. Okay, let's run it again. There's no number. Optimistic. Okay, okay. Sorry for all this. Right. And the calmness quality and the optimistic quality. I guess the name was wrong anyway. So the daughter can access both. So this was the example of multiple inheritance. The syntax for multiple inheritance is like inherit one class, you can inherit another class, just separate the two things with a comma, right? And you're good to go. Anyway, there is a hierarchical inheritance. The hierarchical inheritance is pretty much simple, and hierarchical inheritance is pretty much simple and is used because it doesn't cause any issues. So it is the class 1 and we have two classes like class 2 and 3, class 2 and class 3, right? And the two classes are inheriting from one base class. So it's pretty much simple, right? It's just like a single inheritance. For this class we have, it's a single inheritance, right? If I want to make it more clear, for this class it's like this, and for this class it's like this, right? uh, so it's like this. We have to just inherit the two class separately from one file. We cannot, we have to create a class and inherit from the first class. We have to create a class and inherit from this class, right? So it's like this only. I don't think I need to give an example here. Just see the, let's see the slides, and let's move ahead with this because it's pretty much simple. We have created a child class 1, base class, child class 2, accessing the base class. Like vehicle, car and bus are basically example of vehicle, right? Anyway, there is a hybrid inheritance. Hybrid inheritance is nothing but all the permutations and combinations of all the above inheritance. It can include one or more inheritance, and let's see the example, right? I'm not going to give you an example here because I don't think it's required, right? But if you will request it, we can make a separate video on that, no problems at all. But I think you should ask doubts regarding that. If we create a class like this, it will be technically correct or not. I think you should ask doubts like this because there is no scope basically for spoon feeding in the IT world, right? And that's pretty much, you should be clear about that. There's a class 1, right? There's a class 2, right? So here I am taking, let's give, so here I have combined three inheritance. The first one is of course that single inheritance. The second one is The second one is of course multi-level inheritance. The third one is like the third one is hybrid inheritance, sorry, hierarchical inheritance, and the fifth one is of course the hybrid inheritance. I haven't deliberately included multiple inheritance in this, right? Anyway, so let's move forward. I'm giving you an example. I actually don't know how to increase the font size of this, right? I genuinely don't know. Anyway, let's give you a problem here. And this problem is famously known as, I won't tell you, I guess you will figure out yourself only, right? This is your class. Here you have combined all the multiple, all the five types of inheritance, and there is some issue with this inheritance. Let's please tell me about that. Think of this problem, and if you are able to figure out, it's a it means that you are able to understand things. Means obviously it would be great if you don't know and still you are able to figure out, right? So in the next lecture we'll discuss more on inheritance, since till now we have covered five types of inheritance, right? And for this lecture I guess it should be more than enough, right? So let's see in the next video. If any doubts, then just comment in the, then just ask, then you can ask us, right? You can ask with your peers also. I guess peer to peer learning is actually really effective, and nevertheless we will answer all of your questions. So good luck for the next video.